husband of one wife. Sober-minded is the second one. This speaks of a person who is discerning. He ought not be giddy. He ought not be frivolous. He ought to be a person who can be taken seriously. And yes, this is coming from the pastor who wore the Chuck Norris t-shirt to camp. When I say he must be able to be taken seriously, this is what I mean. He must have balanced thinking, and he must have consistent beliefs. He cannot be driven by every wind of doctrine. He must stand on the Word and have his foundation in the truth. He must be sober-minded. He must be self-controlled. This is the next one on the list. And this is the sister of being sober-minded. Mental restraint in his physical. Mental restraint in his words. To watch what he says, what he thinks, and what he does. To be willing to admit when he's wrong and to seek forgiveness if he has wronged with his words. Self-control doesn't, again, mean you're perfect, but it means that you're able to recognize a fault and fix it. He must be respectable. What does it mean to be respectable? Well, it means to be a person who has maturity and wisdom that others have already looked up to. You don't get in the position of elder to get respect. One of the prerequisites is that you have already shown yourself to be a person who deserves respect. You already have shown yourself to be a person of leadership. You have already shown yourself to be a person of trustworthiness. You are already a person of respect. You are respectable. You're not getting there to get the respect. In fact, if you become an elder simply to get recognition, you have already shot yourself in the foot because you're going, the desire is for the wrong thing anyway. Hospitable. I want you to know that this does not mean that you throw the best dinner parties. Hospitality as an elder means that you are a person who is open and willing to receive and help the needs of the people. Maybe another word for hospitable could be simply this: a lover of the flock. A person who never has a closed door to the needs of his people. Reaches out to all. And finally, on the list, these are all the positive things, the positive statements: husband of one wife, sober-minded, self-controlled, respectable, hospitable, able to teach is the last on the list. And that doesn't simply mean that a person has the ability to teach. What it means is that person's skills in teaching, it doesn't talk about the person's skills in teaching, it talks about their quality and ability to teach. Are they qualified to teach? He is not to be a person whose lifestyle, morality, or attitude, or inflection of voice, or anything would disqualify him in any way from taking up the mantle of teacher. Is he a contentious person? He ought not be teaching. But if he has disqualified himself as a teacher, he has disqualified himself as an elder. Then we move to the negative statements revolving around morals. He is not to be a drunkard. Do I need to say anything about that? I mean, is it hard to understand that an elder ought not be a person who allows substances to control his behavior? How could you imagine that? Drinking in excess is wrong. It is a sin anyway to drink in excess. It is a wrong to get drunk, because it alters your behavior. But for an elder, it is stated specifically that it is unacceptable to be such a person. He is not to be violent, but gentle and not quarrelsome. An elder is not to be a person who goes around picking fights. To be a person who nitpicks everybody and everything is not the quality of an elder. He ought not fuss about every little thing and find fault with every person. A hard-hearted, hard-handed person disqualifies themselves as an elder. He ought not be a lover of money. An elder cannot be greedy. It's just not, it ought not be a part of their makeup. The Bible says the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. An elder who is in the position for the seeking of material gain is there, again, for the wrong reason. Now, again, I mentioned all of those moral qualities are just an extension of the first, above reproach. Paul could have said just that and left it there. But he wanted to make sure that just in case we had a question, what does it mean to be above reproach? This is what it means. The person who is seeking the office of elder must have a moral requirement that he meets. He must also, number 3, the person desiring the office must meet a familial requirement. What is that? Verse 4. He must manage his own household well, with all dignity, keeping his children submissive. For if someone does not know how to manage his own household, how will he care for God's church? Now, isn't that just a wise thing to say? Sometimes the Bible says things that I think it's so simple, it's so obvious, they had to say it because we'd have never figured it out for ourselves. And this is one. He says the church is like a giant family. And it really is. The church is like a giant family, and the elders are like the father figures of the family. And it is the elders who are supposed to be responsible for the spiritual management of the church. And a father is responsible for the management of his home. A father whose home is mismanaged cannot rightly manage the church family. How many of you remember Jesus in his parable of the talents? Remember Jesus told the parable? He said there was a person who had money and he left it with 3 servants, right? And he went away and he came back, and one of them had taken the money, the talents, and had multiplied it manyfold, and then the other had multiplied it a little bit, and the other had buried it. And what did the character in the story do? He took the one who was faithful with the little and gave him much more. And he said to the one who wasn't faithful, "You're not even a servant." Likewise with the family. How could someone who cannot manage their family ever expect to manage the church of God? Can't. Family management is a requirement for an elder. First, be responsible for the small thing God has entrusted you with, your home. Then, God will entrust you with more, His own house. Number 4, and I'm not trying to rush through these, but I want to make sure that we get to the end. The person desiring the office must meet experiential requirements. Look at verse 6. 1 Timothy 3, verse 6. He must not be a recent convert, or he may become puffed up with conceit and fall into the condemnation of the devil. Moreover, he must be well thought of by outsiders so that he may not fall into disgrace, into a snare of the devil. I want to have everyone's attention to what I'm about to say. There is no age requirement to be an elder. Because if there were, Timothy wouldn't have been an elder.